Welcome back, everyone, to the IOA podcast. I am your host, Dr. Malika, and this is a space where we heal loudly and we live softly. So, if you are new here and you haven't been with us before, we want to just say welcome, come on in, take a seat, do whatever you need to get comfortable, because there's definitely enough room for you here at the table with us. And if you've been with us since the beginning, I just want to tell you thank you. We do not take it lightly that you continue to be with us week after week. And for some of you who have been with us since the very beginning, again, thank you. And so, special shout out to the listeners at WDJY in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. We are thankful and grateful for the partnership. We're thankful for the support. And we hope to continue to do this much longer into the future. And so, I want to get a little housekeeping out the way. I always do this at the top of the show. And the reason why we do this is because it's important to make sure that we keep this community growing in the way we need it to grow. And so, the most important thing you can do that will be helpful, that costs you nothing, it's absolutely free, is to follow or subscribe to the show. So, we are asking that you click that subscribe button, click that like button if you haven't already done so. By doing that, number one, it lets the algorithm know that you are interested in this and shares it with others. And when you like the episode, so make sure you've liked this episode. That should be the first thing you do when we start every week. At the top of the show is hit that like button. That is going to get this information out there to other people. This literally is the single most powerful thing that you can do to help this work reach other people who need it. And the second thing I'm going to ask, if you are on Apple Podcasts listening to the show, is to leave a 5-star review. Leave a review with an honest sentence that basically helps listeners decide whether or not to trust us with their time. And we hope that they will, just like you have. This may be something that will come across a person who has been waiting for permission to do what they need to do in their life, move forward, deconstruct some things, take those small steps. So by you doing that, this is community care in action. And you know that's what we do here all the time. Remember that all of our platforms are linked in the show notes. The Substack companion of this episode is live. It comes out prior to the show going live every Tuesday at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And our paid subscribers will be getting some extra stuff this week, as they usually do. They'll get an extended celebration practice waiting for them this week. It's going to actually go deeper than what we can go here on the show, which is really important to be able to take these practices and to go deeper into them. And then I'll tell you more about that when we get to the close. So I want us to take a really quick break, and then I want us to jump back into this because it is really important for us to kind of set the scene of what we're going to be talking about this week. And I think the topic of being able to celebrate ourselves without permission is really important. And so we're going to get this break out the way. And then when we come back, we are going to dig deeper into this episode. We'll be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to get into talking about our topic for today. And I think that it is really important because we are talking about how we celebrate ourselves without waiting for permission. And I think that this is an important topic. I think that is an important timing. It is relevant, it is necessary. And so we are going to get into an extension from what we had last week when we were talking about having stillness, having quiet, so that that voice underneath all the noise can come to the forefront and can be heard. And I think that that connects to what we're talking about. We can't talk about celebrating ourselves without asking for permission if we don't understand and let the voice speak about what we know about ourselves. And so I think that that's important, because after all the quiet, right? After we get all that, we get all this information, we got to do something with the purpose that we hear about that's birthed inside of us. Otherwise, we will forget those things that became clear, the things that we discerned. And so we're not going to just be out here, you know, being proud, or, and no, being proud is not a bad thing. So I'm not going to say that. Have pride in yourself. You should have that. But we're not being arrogant. What we're doing is we are celebrating ourselves on purpose. We are noticing how amazing we are, and we're not waiting and asking for permission in order to do that. So here's a question I want to ask to kind of just frame where we are right now. When was the last time that you celebrated yourself and did it out loud without feeling like you needed to take back doing that? And probably some of you may flinch, some of you may get a little tense because you don't feel that that's something that is appropriate for you to do. People may judge you for celebrating yourself, but I think that it's important. And so the celebration is not, now listen to how I asked the question. The celebration is not the last time something good happened to you. Good things happen to all of us. I mean, when was the last time that you actually allowed the good thing that happened to you to land, to really sink in, really say out loud, I did that, right? I'm proud of myself. And you don't have to chase it with a qualifier. You don't have to make it seem politically correct. You don't say, it's not a big deal. You did say, this is something I did and it was amazing. You don't point to another person who did it better, right? You don't have to say a thing is not finished, even though you're making milestones towards a goal. You just allowed yourself to be proud for just a whole minute without that flinching and that tension that I talked about. For many of us, that minute is often impossible for us to find. That moment is something that doesn't come often. And I have been trying to think about and understand why. And I think that there is some deep connection to why we struggle with being able to celebrate ourselves. So, somewhere along the way, this gets into what I talk about all the time. I believe that there's a learned behavior that has conditioned us over time to believe that celebration is something that you have to be worthy of and something that you have to earn. That the joy of a reward, you get that at the end of the work, you get that after the work, after the proof, or after someone validates that it's okay for you to do that in your life. We have learned to defer as a people and as individuals our own celebration, to wait for that permission slip. And if we're being honest, most times it's never going to arrive. You're not going to get permission from other people consistently to tell you to celebrate yourself. And I want this to land for you. Good things are going to keep passing by, and they're going to go through our hands unacknowledged, unmarked, until one day you look up and realize that you've accomplished some things and that you have a right to feel proud of it. So I want to name who this episode is for. I typically do this every episode. We talk about who's the episode for in a way that it identifies some behavioral patterns or some thought processes so you can understand if this is something that you may be doing but may not be aware. And so this is for the one who often does amazing things or accomplishes things and says it's not a big deal before anyone even has the opportunity to say congratulations. You don't allow yourself to do that. This is for the one who often waits. They wait quietly for a person to notice, almost as if they're waiting for them to give them permission, hoping that someone else will name the thing that you are too afraid to name for yourself. This is for the one who feels embarrassment, almost shame at the thought of celebrating your own life. You may have been told in a lot of small ways, do not do too much, do not take up too much room, do not make it about you. If any part of this is you, I want you to settle in because this episode is definitely for you. And I'm going to say this, even though I know we're going to go deeper into this to validate you, you have the ability to take room, take up space. You are worth it. You are enough, and no one else has to validate that. So, today for this episode, we're going to walk through four things. Number one, we're going to talk about why we brace against our own joy and why the good moment can feel almost more frightening than the hard ones, because this is the real reason that we have this particular behavioral pattern, because literally it's living in our body. We're going to talk about number two, the myth that celebration must be earned and that it's arrogant. It requires a milestone big enough to justify it. We're going to talk about that myth. Number three, we are going to talk about our inheritance, because joy for our people has never been a frivolous thing. It has been our resistance. And then number four, as always, we're going to have a practice with the eye of pause as the doorway so that the good things finally have somewhere to land in your life. This is not a fake it till you make it type episode. I'm not going to tell you to stand in the mirror and shout affirmations that you don't believe. I need you to believe what's coming through. This is your root system work. All right. It's going to be slow. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be learning to receive your own life, to let joy move through you instead of bracing against it, and to stop waiting for permission from other people that was always yours to begin to give. So if you are ready to go deeper into this, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and begin this work. Be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to get a little bit deeper into this episode, and we're going to start with our first segment in understanding why we brace against joy. And because I think that this is important to start with an understanding of how we got here and why, I want to start with understanding what the body does in response, as I always usually do. This is usually where I start. So, because we like to talk about joy as if it's only a feeling and a mood, I think we need to understand the physical event of joy. It moves through our nervous system exactly the same way fear does, exactly the same way grief does. And for a lot of us, something strange happens the moment that joy actually arrives for us. That good feeling comes in, and instead of us opening our bodies up to receive that, we often tighten physically. We're bracing. And once you understand why you do this, you can stop treating it as a character flaw and start going down the path of healing that particular space that causes that response. There's a name that one of the most common versions of this, and researcher Brene Brown gave it a name that I think is perfect. I like the way she talked about this. She calls it foreboding joy. And so foreboding joy is basically what happens when you feel something good and almost in the same breath you feel the fear that it will be taken away from you. So you're holding your sleeping child, and instead of feeling the tenderness, a cold thought arrives. What if something happens to her? What if something happens to him? You can't even enjoy the beauty and the joy and the bliss of what is happening because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You get news that you have been praying for, things you have been working for. And before you can even smile and celebrate it, you have this voice that basically says, don't get too excited. Something bad could happen, something could go wrong. Joy comes in the front door, but when it comes in, dread literally is right behind it. So here's what the bracing is actually trying to do. It's a strategy. Somewhere in us, we have come to believe that if we rehearse the disaster now, if we imagine the worst possible outcome, the loss in advance, we won't get caught off guard when it actually comes. We are trying to soften a future blow by refusing to be fully present in this good moment. We think that if we let ourselves be all the way happy, the fall will hurt more, so we hold on, a little bit. We hold back on that happiness instead of allowing us to feel it in the moment the way we should. It's like we're putting a deposit against the pain that we believe is actually coming, even though we don't know whether or not that is going to be in our future. But I'll say it this way, it never works. All it does is rob us of the good thing while we still have it here in front of us. And there's also another layer to this that I think that is important, and I see it constantly just as I'm observing around us. I see it in the work that I do, kind of a sense of guilt around pleasure, a sense that it is somehow wrong or selfish to feel good, especially when you know others are suffering around you. You ask yourself, how can you celebrate when the world is on fire? That comes from a very decent place. It comes from a kind, compassionate, caring heart. But we also have to remember that your suffering is not going to reduce or lessen the suffering of any other person. Your refusal to feel joy, your refusal to celebrate yourself, your refusal to acknowledge the wins and the things that you're having does not add anything or change anything in the world. It really only subtracts from you. You are the one who is suffering when this happens. A drained, joyless person has less to give. You're the one that is going to be suffering from this. And I think that if we're being honest, there is a deeper layer. Like, this is the deepest layer, right? The one that matters the most is for the people who tend to find themselves in this space. Joy was not just fragile, right? Joy was dangerous from a historical standpoint. So if you grew up in a home where a good mood could turn on a dime, where you could be happy, and then the next thing you know, you're met with something that could be dangerous or could be aggressive or could be violent, you learned that joy was not safe. And that being noticed and allowing yourself to be seen and allowing yourself to be fully present and showing up and taking space, that could be something that could be hazardous to you. So what's happening is, over time, your body has learned to flinch in those moments of happiness because of how it was responded to. And it's not because there's something wrong with joy, but it's because you did not feel safe because of how people around you responded to it. And so I want to give a historical context because I think that it is really important to understand that as a people, we constantly see it. We're seeing it right now, that whenever Black people celebrate themselves, whenever Black people have joy, irregardless of what's happening out there, right? We know that there are a lot of things happening that are not necessarily good, but in those moments as a people, we have found ourselves with an ability that I believe is a gift to be able to celebrate the wins and the gains, even in the midst of other things not being all the way we want it to be. And we're constantly met historically with backlash, with violence, with being put down. And I think when we see that as a people over time, we have been made to feel that it's unsafe. We're brought over here against our will. And when we sing and when we celebrate and we use our culture, we were met with whippings and beatings and killings and hangings. All these things have epigenetically been put inside of us that have made us feel that it's not safe to have those moments of joy. And so I want to tell you this, it's not about diagnosis. It's not about saying something's wrong. What this is about is us understanding what are the patterns that we have. Are we deflecting compliments? Are we minimizing wins? Are we changing the subject when the attention turns around to us? We may be doing that because we've been conditioned into knowing that when we don't do this, it's not safe. And so here's the cost that I want you to understand with that. The joy that you don't receive is not going to disappear. It's not moving through your body the way it needs to. It's just stuck. Now you're backed up, right? And you have this almost numbness, this sense that doesn't quite reach good or bad. You're in this limbo. And that feeling is not something that is beneficial to you long term. You're creating almost a wall. And the wall that you're putting up that distances you from pain because you don't want to feel that pain is the same wall that's also keeping joy out as well. So when you're bracing against the fall, you're also bracing against the flight that comes along with it. So I want to give us clearly practical tools that go into the book. And in Rooted to Resilience, there's a chapter in here that talks about the dance. That's the title of the chapter. And so I chose that word on purpose because I feel that joy was never meant to be held still. It was meant to have movement. And we know that joy is about moving, right? I mean, dancing is about moving. And so the dance is about moving the joy through your body. It's about letting it out of your throat into your hands, into your hips, your feet, right? Because joy is often only thought about as a private feeling, a private experience. We never realized that it was meant to be something that we share as an energy from us to other people. We are basically saying to joy, because this is what it's asking of us, to let this good thing move through us. Let it be experienced out loud. Don't allow it to be something that is done in isolation. And so I think that that's key. And I hope that this is enough foundational things to get us to this next step. When we come back in the next segment, we are going to be talking about the myth of celebration. And I think that after we talk about how we got here, what the physical things are, now we need to dispel the myths because we want to change and reframe our mindsets when it comes to this. So we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we are going to get into dispelling the myths about this particular belief that celebration must be earned. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. I want to get a little bit deeper into dispelling these myths because I think that this is important. I think that in order for us to be able to change a thing, you have to name a thing. And so I want us to name the myth that I believe runs underneath this whole conversation that we're having today, that most of us have never really questioned. And that myth is that celebrating ourselves has to be earned, that before you're actually allowed to be proud of yourself, you have to clear some kind of bar. It has to be some kind of miraculous milestone to produce some proof that it's impressive enough to justify the joy that you're feeling. That celebrating yourself before you have earned it is just premature and it's arrogant. I want to say, no, you're not doing too much. You're not getting ahead of yourself. You're not arrogant. Let's take this myth apart piece by piece because it's really important to deconstruct a thing in order to reconstruct it in the way that's important. First of all, the idea that celebration is arrogant. I want to get here. Celebrating yourself is not arrogant, it's acknowledgement. You should be able to acknowledge yourself. How do you know what you've accomplished and where you're trying to go in the future if you never acknowledge the things that you've done? Arrogance is a belief that you're better than other people. Acknowledgement really is simply willingness to see yourself clearly, to say, this was hard, but I did it, and give yourself credit for doing that. And sometimes having an honest witness to the work that you've done, a friend, a family member, a spouse, whatever it may be. And so I think that that distinction is important. You're not believing you're better than other people by celebrating yourself. If this were on the other foot, and so the shoe's on the other foot, and this were your friend, you would throw your arms around them. You would tell them, how dare you not celebrate yourself? You would not allow him or her to call themselves arrogant. You would basically say, I refuse for you not to celebrate this amazing accomplishment. And so you doing it to yourself, something that you wouldn't do to another person or allow another person to do, it's not humility. It's really self abandonment. And so I think that that distinction is really important. The second thing that I think is important is that the idea or belief that joy is frivolous is a luxury for real when real work is done. So basically saying that joy is frivolous in a moment where you haven't really done enough work or you haven't really justified doing enough things. Joy's not frivolous. It's your fuel. It's the thing that keeps you going. It's a refill. It's the thing that keeps you pouring out, that keeps giving you the ability to do the things you do. And for people who have had to fight every inch of their life, tooth and nail, just to get to where they are, joy is probably the not just the greatest fuel that they have, but joy is often their resistance. We are, as a people in this world, we have had to grind it out, right? And our grinding it out and still having joy in the midst of it is a political act. It is saying, I refuse, we refuse as a people to be reduced to just our struggle. Our joy is not a distraction. We know there's serious work out there, but we also know that most of the serious work in our life needs this joy to keep us pushing forward. And if we look around at all the stuff that's happening now, joy is the only thing that is keeping us going. So, third, I also want to look at the myth that celebration requires that you do something big enough for it to count, that you have to hit some kind of milestone. I think this one is quietly stealing joy because we have to realize that most of our life is really not going to be a whole lot of milestones. Sometimes it's just going to be an average Tuesday. It's just going to be the small, unwitnessed things that we do. They're not going to be fireworks and bells and whistles through all of our life. And so, if we only wait for those big moments to happen, you will go a good majority of your life without witnessing your own amazingness, without witnessing the greatness that is in you. You know that you have done something great, but you will overlook it simply because it is not considered to be big enough to be celebrated in that moment. So, here's a practical example. If you're in school and you're in a degree program and you think I only can celebrate when I graduate and get the degree, you spend most of your time in that program uncelebrated. You could celebrate when you successfully turn in an assignment. Turn that assignment in, get a good grade. Celebration, have joy. You can celebrate finishing a class successfully. Celebrate that, have the joy. All of these moments of joy that you have keeps fueling you to stay in this degree program. Anyone that's gone to college knows that it's an arduous task. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of motivation. And this joy can be the thing that you need. Because when we learn to mark those small things, the joy stops being this rare event. And it now is a practice that we actually live inside of. It's the practice that moves us forward. All right. And then the fourth thing I want us to talk about is the fear that rides underneath all of this, especially for people that I have worked with students that I see. This is the thing that I often find very prevalent in with women for some reason. The fear that celebrating yourself is going to invite people to attack you, that they'll be inviting some kind of backlash, that if you shine too bright, you'll be resented. And I kind of understand where this mentality comes from. Unfortunately, in our country, a lot of the things that are done here are very anti women. It's a matter of keeping women in a particular role. And I won't get down the rabbit hole because I feel like we could go there. But the fact that so many things from a legislative standpoint, a lot of things in past history in this country have been about women having to be validated by a husband or by someone else, right? That shows that we were dimming our light or they were trying to dim our light and we bought into it, right? I want you to understand that you can take up as much room as you want to. You deserve to take the room. You are enough. And I'm going to add this layer, right? Especially for Black women. The fear is not something that just came out of nowhere. Our joy has been policed. We're watching it now. It's interesting. I was at just happen to have on my Sparks t-shirt. I am a Sparks season ticket holder with my husband, and we were at the game last night, and Vice President Kamala Harris was at the game, and with her husband Doug Emhoff. And so the celebration that she got when she was shown on the screen was very joyful. It was very reflective of who she is. And my mind goes to the fact that you celebrate her now when she's just a private citizen. She's not in a place to do anything to help us, although she has been a public servant the majority of her adult life. And we give her this celebration when it really doesn't count. But when we had the moment where we could celebrate her, allow her to have the space, back her, support her in what she was doing, we didn't do that. Because in the moment when she was running for president, Joy was being policed. People didn't like her laugh. They didn't like that she was so upbeat and she danced and she did these different things, right? Basically telling us that having confidence as a Black woman is something to be punished. And so there's this unspoken rule that I believe that is there. And they're telling us to have a humility that oftentimes the person telling us that does not have themselves. They're telling us to downplay ourselves when they're not doing that. And so I want you to hear me clearly, and this is important. Shrinking yourself has never once kept us safe, because people that are determined to attack us are going to keep doing that, whether we show up big or small. It's only going to keep us small if we play it safe. The people that are committed to resenting your light will find a reason to do that regardless. So my message to you, plain and clear, is to just let it shine. So I want to give you one more distinction before we move into this next break. And this is what's important. There's a difference between celebrating yourself and performing. The celebrating is for you. It's not about other people. It really is the honest act of letting a good thing be real for you and letting it be witnessed in your own life. Performing is for an audience. That means you're arranging this good thing so other people can see it, so that they'll see it a certain way, so that the win will become content that can be used. We're not here to perform for others. We are here to celebrate ourselves. And I'm also not here to shame anyone for sharing how you share it, right? If you celebrate yourself in private and still have content on social media, that is fine. My point is that you can perform wins, but it's not going to be as effective as when you actually feel it. And so that's the part that's most important. And so here's the reframe that I want to offer you. I want you to actually take this in. You don't need anyone's permission to be proud of your life. You don't need a milestone big enough to justify the joy that you feel. You do not need to have arrived somewhere impressive before you are allowed to celebrate how far you have come. The permission has always been there. The permission was always yours, and it always will be. And so I want you, when you get an opportunity, get the book, number one. But number two, the chapter in the book about the bloom, I feel like goes with this, because think about a flower. It does not apologize or ask permission to open up and bloom. It doesn't wait for other flowers to do it. It doesn't dim its own color in order to be comfortable. It just does what it's supposed to do. It blooms. And that blooming is not arrogance. It is simply the plant doing what it's supposed to do. And so I think that this is a good place for us to pause, to go into our break. And when we come back, we're going to dig into the IAPause practice for this episode. So stay with us. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. And we are going to go a little bit deeper into this episode. And I feel like we're starting to land this plane, and I think that is important. And so I think that I want to pair us understanding joy as an inheritance and a resistance with the IAPause that we're going to talk about for this show. So let's widen the lens a little bit, the way I often like to do, and understand, again, joy is not new for us. Celebration is not new for us. For us as a people, it has been more than a feeling. It has been our survival technology. It literally has been our resistance. And so it's one of the most defiant things that you can do as a person. Think about where it came from. Think about the West African traditions of celebration, how it was woven into all the ways of life. There were festivals that marked things like harvest and turning of the year. There was drumming. We did it not as entertainment, but it was a language. It was a way of gathering the whole community into a shared rhythm, one where we all had this shared heartbeat in that moment. There were naming ceremonies and there were ways of celebrating new life. The joy was being done in a way that was communal because it's sacred. It was how we as a people said, we're here, we're together, and this is worth celebrating and marking as a moment. And the joy carried us, as we said, through some of the most brutal conditions in humanity that we have ever seen. We are not going to get into talking about slavery in depth because we don't need to. We know what it was. But under those conditions that were designed to crush our human spirit, our ancestors found a way to keep finding ways to celebrate themselves, to keep gathering, to keep moving their bodies with joy. In every single instance they were doing that, that was an act of resistance. And so I want you to embody that. Keep it going. I have often talked about the second line in New Orleans and how when there's grief present that they dance through the streets on the way to the gravesite to celebrate the life because they have learned to put the joy and sorrow in the same process. And I think that that's an important thing. It's letting us know that no, everything is not the way we want it to be. Everything's not perfect. Some things are challenging, but in the midst of this, we're still going to dance. In the midst of this, there's still going to be joy. In the midst of this, there's going to be cookouts and potlucks and all the different things that we do as a people, right? We're gathering together. And I know you're like, but every time I feel like I have the moment where I want to celebrate, where I want to have the moment of joy, I feel like I'm being policed. Yes, that is a reality. Our joy has been policed. Our celebrations have been surveilled. They've been broken up. They've been punished. But I want you to understand that a joyful people are hard to control. And if you keep fighting and keep resisting, the more that they keep trying to surveil you and to police what you're doing, that is going to empower you in a way that nobody can back down. And understand that that makes us dangerous. And the more we lean into it, the more powerful we become. So I want to ask you this question. When you ask yourself, if I celebrate myself, what's going to happen? I want you to understand what I'm really asking or what you're actually asking of yourself. I'm not asking you to do something that's out of your comfort zone. All right. What I'm asking you to do is to look at who you are, how things work for you, how you function, right? And to step back into something that's natural to you. I'm also telling you that you're stepping into something that actually is your birthright. Your ancestors did this and passed this on to you. So it is something that you have a right to do. It's not the reward after the fight is won. It's the way you survive the fight. Like I said, it's the fuel, it's the medicine, it's the resistance, and it has been handed down to us. How dare we just throw that to the side? Because this is where the dance and the bloom actually meet. Our people didn't feel the joy privately, right? It wasn't just in their heads, they did it together. And when the dancing, the movement of joy, meets with the blooming in the public space and refuses to be diminished, right? We're letting the good thing move through our body and we're letting ourselves be seen in living color. That's the part that's most important. So let's move into this eye of pause, which I think is foundational and important, right? For the eye of pause, one of the things you have to remind yourself is you don't have to earn this. The space is yours. It doesn't have to be long. It's just breath that you take on purpose in the middle of your day, in the middle of your life, however this is going to work. I want you to know that joy is the doorway that you're about to walk through, and the way you're going to do it is to use this eye of pause to give you the strength to go through it. All right. So here's what I want you to do. As always, put your feet on the floor, hand to your chest, and hand on your belly if you have the ability to do that. And then you take the exhale in And make sure that as you're breathing in, you count for four, or I'm sorry, the inhale in, count for four. But when you exhale out, let the exhale out be longer. Do that for 6 seconds. And this is basically opening up your nervous system. It's telling it to open up. And I want you to do first breath, notice where you are as always. Second breath, notice what your body is doing. Third breath, instead of you rising with worry or feeling that worry, allow a good thing to rise up inside of you. All right. That is really the whole practice. That is what you're doing. And that is going to set the stage for you to be in a space that allows you to feel your joy, allows your body to feel relaxed and feel comfortable with feeling joy. And I think that that is the most important thing that we have going here. If you want to add one additional thing on top of this, you can do what I would call a bloom list. And that bloom list is something where you allow yourself to be seen, even if it's only to you. You're naming your wins, basically. You're naming them out loud, or you're putting them on paper and making them tangible. And it doesn't matter the size. It doesn't matter how big it is. So after you breathe, you open yourself up, you take your pause to regulate your nervous system, then create your bloom list where you are tangibly acknowledging or verbally acknowledging what it is that you have celebrated, no matter the size. So we're going to take the last break of the episode, and we're going to do some closing and some housekeeping for the show. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to close out the show. And so before I let you go, I just want to ask you one question. And I do not want you to answer this quickly. I really want you to take your time and think about it before you answer. And I also want you to let the answer sit with you. And then I want you to work on making your bloom list for this week. What have you been waiting for permission to celebrate? And I want you to acknowledge whatever that is. If something rose inside of you just now, that's good, right? That means there's something there that's arm length that's been waiting for you to allow yourself to be proud of it. And I want you to dig into that. I think that that's important. Stop shrinking yourself so that everyone around you will feel comfortable. Be you out loud, no matter if it's accepted or not. And I think that this is a good place to end. I think that there's so much more that we could talk about on this, but we would be here for probably an hour and a half if we did that, which is the reason why the Substack companion is really important to what we do. And so I encourage you, if you don't already, to make sure that you are a part of the Substack community. It's really important. That is where you're going to get more information that allows you to go deeper into these practices that we talk about here on the show. And if you want to know how to do that, just make sure that you reach out to me, right? I also put it in the show notes here where you can just click. It'll take you over to Substack and you'll be able to do what you need to do. On Substack, we are the IOA, AYAWAY. And then don't forget one last time to make sure that you're liking and subscribing to the show so that we can get more people on board with the work that we are doing here. And so, as I always say, this is a space where we heal loudly and we live softly. It is yours. You do not have to earn it. And go out and have some joy this week. Have a great one.